The forest of Sherwood is more than a stretch of land in Nottinghamshire. It is a place that breathes through history and myth alike, a stage where the impossible feels as though it could once have been possible. Mist clings to the trees like a veil, and the silence of the woods almost begs for a whisper of names long gone. For centuries, one name in particular has echoed louder than the rest: Robin Hood, the outlaw who, according to legend, defied sheriffs, kings, and the crushing weight of medieval power. Yet the question remains, was Robin Hood ever a man of flesh and blood, or is he a shadow stitched together from centuries of dreams, fears, and propaganda? Robin Hood is one of the most enduring figures in Western folklore, a character that has shifted identities more times than most kings and rulers of the past 1,000 years. Sometimes he is a ruthless criminal, sometimes a noble knight fallen from grace, and sometimes the people's champion, robbing the rich to give to the poor. He has been a symbol of rebellion, a tool of monarchy, and even a sanitized figure of children's entertainment. But behind every mask he wears lies the same mystery. Who or what was Robin Hood really? To answer that, we must peel back the layers of ballad, politics, and propaganda that have turned an outlaw, real or imagined, into a legend the world refuses to forget. Our first evidence of Robin Hood does not come from royal records or historical chronicles, but from the songs of the people. In the 14th century, wandering minstrels carried the tales of an outlaw who stalked the greenwood. These ballads were not written to flatter kings or priests. They were raw, visceral accounts meant to stir the hearts of peasants. And in these earliest songs, Robin was not the smiling trickster in bright green tights. He was violent, ruthless, and unashamedly opposed to the authorities of his time. He robbed merchants, killed sheriffs, and ambushed tax collectors. The earliest surviving ballad, A Jest of Robin Hood, paints a picture of a man who exists on the knife's edge between justice and brutality. He was loyal to his men, generous to the poor, and merciless to corrupt officials. For the common laborer or farmer listening to these songs in a smoky tavern, Robin was not a fairy tale hero. He was a dream, the idea that somewhere in the forest there lived a man who dared to strike back at those who lived fat off the suffering of the people. In these verses, Robin becomes more than just an outlaw. He is justice, sung into being by a people who rarely saw justice at all. To understand Robin Hood, we must understand his greatest enemy, the sheriff. In medieval England, sheriffs were not bumbling bureaucrats, as later tales might have us believe. They were the very embodiment of royal authority. They collected taxes, enforced laws, and put down rebellion with brutal efficiency. They were the iron grip of the crown, feared in every village and town. For a peasant, there was no escaping their power. And yet in the legend, Robin Hood does what no one else dares. He defies them. He robs their men, humiliates them, and in many stories, kills them outright. In doing so, Robin becomes a symbol of ultimate rebellion, not against crown directly, but against its enforcers. That distinction is important, because in the earliest ballads, Robin was not a revolutionary seeking to overthrow kings. He was a man resisting corrupt officials who abused their power. To the people, he was not an anarchist. He was a balanced authority, a reminder that the king's men were not invincible, whether or not such a man ever lived. The very idea of him was enough to plant a seed of defiance in the hearts of those who listened. Over the centuries, Robin Hood's story began to change. By the time of the Tudor dynasty in the 16th century, the raw, violent outlaw of medieval ballads had been reshaped into something more convenient for rulers. Suddenly, Robin was no longer a man who simply killed sheriffs and robbed travelers. He was a loyal servant of King Richard, fighting against the usurper Prince John. His rebellion was transformed from a defiance of power into a defense of rightful authority. Why this change? The answer lies in propaganda. In a world where stories were as powerful as armies, rulers quickly understood that legends could be harnessed. By reframing Robin Hood as a man loyal to the crown, the monarchy could transform a dangerous outlaw into a safe symbol. The people could keep their hero, but only under conditions that reinforced obedience to the king. The rough edges of Robin's rebellion were sanded down, and in their place stood a figure of patriotism and royal legitimacy. What began as a grassroots tale of resistance became, in part, a tool of political control. Historians have long debated whether Robin Hood was a real man or merely a symbol. Court records from the 13th and 14th centuries mention men with names like Robert Hodd, Hobod, or even Robin Hood. Outlaws scattered across England, each with their own story of crime and punishment. But none of these figures fit neatly into the legend. Some may have inspired parts of the tale. Others may have simply been folded into it over time. It is entirely possible that Robin Hood was never one man at all, but rather a collection of memories, names, and deeds that coalesce into one figure larger than life. But perhaps the question of his existence is the wrong one to ask. The more important question is, why did the legend endure? Why did people cling to Robin Hood's story for centuries, long after any real man might have been forgotten? The answer is simple. Robin Hood is not about history. He is about justice. He represents the eternal dream that some will stand up to corruption, to greed, and to machinery of power, even when no one else dares. Even today, Robin Hood lives on. His story has been told in plays, books, films, and even children's cartoons. Each generation reshapes him, dressing him in the values and struggles of the time. To Victorians, he was a noble gentleman thief. To Hollywood, he became a romantic swashbuckler. To the oppressed, he is still a symbol of resistance. And to children, he is a playful hero with a bow in hand, a man who stands for fairness in a world that is anything but. Whether Robin Hood was man, myth, or propaganda hardly matters anymore. What matters is that his story still carries weight. He is not just a figure of the Middle Ages. He is an idea. The idea that even in the darkest times, justice can be imagined and perhaps, in some way, achieved. That is why the legend refuses to die. Because deep down, every age, every people still needs its Robin Hood. By the Victorian era, Robin Hood had once again changed. Now he was no longer a killer in the woods or a servant of the king, but a romantic gentleman thief. He robbed the rich to give the poor, not simply for survival or revenge. This version of Robin reflected a society struggling with industrial inequality, urban poverty, and vast wealth gaps. In the hands of writers and novelists, Robin became a fantasy of fairness. It is this Victorian image, the charitable outlaw, the benevolent thief, that most of us recognize today. Yet this transformation raises a question. Did Robin Hood ever truly belong to history at all? Or has he always been an invention, a reflection of whatever value society most wanted to see? Each era remade him, polishing away old edges and sharpening new ones, until the legend bore only a passing resemblance to its roots. Robin Hood was never fixed. He was a mirror. Today, Robin Hood is everywhere. On film, in books, on the lips of children playing with toy bows. He has become global, a symbol of resistance that transcends his medieval birthplace. In modern times, activists, politicians, and even corporations invoke his name, some sincerely, others cynically, to claim the mantle of fairness and justice. Robin Hood has long since escaped Sherwood. He belongs now to the human imagination itself. Whether he was a man, a myth, or a tool of propaganda is almost irrelevant. What matters is why his story endures. Robin Hood is not about who he was, but what he means. The eternal hunger for justice in a world that too often denies it. His arrows may have never flown, but his legend still strikes its mark. And that, in the end, is why we will always need our Robin Hood.